Police reopened their investigation into whether Angela Rayner broke electoral law. It'll focus on claims Labour's deputy leader made a false declaration about her main home a decade ago. Claims she denied the party is also backing her.
I have full confidence in Angela Rayner and that she hasn't broken the rules. She will cooperate with the investigation as you would expect. It is now a matter for the police. We need to let them get on with their job.
In a statement this evening, Angela Rayner has said she will step down if she is found to have committed a crime. Also tonight.
I was not aware they were taking place. It's just a straight-out lie, isn't it, Mr. Cook?
Now, the Post Office inquiry, one former boss is accused of lying after insisted he didn't, at the time, realise the company could bring its own prosecutions. Failed at every level, an inquest finds a teenager on the NHS gender clinic waiting list took his own life, and that systemic failures by all of the organisations involved in his care possibly contributed to his death. Could the Commonwealth Games be returning to Scotland? Glasgow steps in with a backup bid after other nations drop out of the running. And
Ladies' Day!
One of the biggest dates in the horse racing calendar. It's Ladies' Day at Aintree.
Really enjoy the horses. I love getting dressed up, so we just thought it was the best of both worlds.
I'm just really excited to be here. I love looking at all the fashions, all the hats, all the styles.
This is the ITV Evening News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. In the last half hour, Labour's deputy leader, Angela Rayner, has said she would step down if she was found to have committed a crime over her living arrangements. Greater Manchester Police has reopened its investigation into whether Miss Rayner gave false information about her main residence when selling her former council house in 2015. She denies any wrongdoing. Sir Keir Starmer said he is fully confident that Miss Rayner has not broken the rules, adding that the investigation would allow a line to be drawn under the matter. Here's our political correspondent, Shihab Khan.
A police investigation into your deputy isn't exactly an ideal headline, especially in the year you want to become Prime Minister. But Angela Rayner is accused of breaking electoral law, and Greater Manchester Police are looking into it. Today, though, her boss, Keir Starmer, backed her unequivocally.
We welcome this investigation because it allows us to draw a line in relation to this matter. I have full confidence in Angela Rayner and that she hasn't broken the rules. She will cooperate with the investigation as you would expect. It is now a matter for the police. We need to let them get on with their job.
Angela Rayner is said to have purchased a council house in Stockport for £79,000 in 2007. She was registered to vote at that address, but there are claims she was actually living with her then partner about a mile down the road. They then got married. Under electoral rules, voters have to register at their permanent address, so the police are now looking into it. There's also a tax implication. So, when she sold her house in 2015 for just over £127,000, making a profit, the amount of tax she owed would depend on where she was actually living.
The actual tax at stake is potentially quite low. There's a relief out there that we have for when we sell a home that we've lived in, called private residence relief. It's hard to say without knowing the facts and circumstances. It could be that actually there's no tax to pay based on, what actually happened. As I said, the rules are very complicated and there's so many moving parts. It's hard to say whether, there has been an error or not.
This investigation focuses on where Rayner lived. This neighbour of 4 years says he's never seen her.
Well, I've been here since 2011 and I've been retired since 2012, and I can say quite categorically she has never lived around here. I would have spotted her. With ginger hair, you spot her.
While this one, who was living there for the year before Rayner sold the house, says similar.
No, I didn't know that she had a house here. I never saw her.
A Labour spokesperson says Rayner spent time at her husband's property when they had children and got married, as he did at hers, and the house she owned remained her main home. The police investigation started following a complaint from a Conservative MP, and ministers say that rules should apply to politicians equally.
It's not as acceptable to simply bury heads and ignore the situation, which is what, of course, Angela Rayner wants people to do. Everyone thinks that the rules should apply to people who aspire to lead the country in the same way as they should to everybody else.
It's uncomfortable for the Labour Party, but Rayner, who has denied any wrongdoing, is adamant this is a chance to clear herself once and for all. And we've had a new statement from Angela Rayner in the last half an hour or so. It's one in which she welcomes the investigation as a chance to sit down with the relevant authorities to go through this, because she says she wants to clear her name. But she's also gone on the attack against the Conservative Party, saying that the reason they've reported her to the police is because this is a distraction tactic from their own record. She goes as far as to say that she's willing to step down if it's found that she's broken any rules or if there's been any criminal offence that's been made. This is difficult territory for the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, because she's been so critical of Conservative politicians in the past when they've been under police investigation. But for now, we'll have to wait and see how the investigation goes.
All right, Shihab in Westminster, thank you. Next tonight, the former managing director of the Post Office was accused of telling a straight-out lie at the Horizon public inquiry today when being questioned about the prosecutions of hundreds of sub-postmasters. Alan Cook insisted he did not, at the time, realise the company he led could bring its own prosecutions, but said he now deeply regretted his lack of knowledge. The hearing was also told about an email sent by Mr Cook in 2009 in which he accused sub-postmasters of having their hands in the till. Neil Connery reports.
Alan Cook was the Post Office managing director between 2006 and 2010. Today at the Post Office inquiry, after apologising to those who'd suffered in the scandal, he made a staggering admission. He didn't realise the Post Office itself brought prosecutions against sub-postmasters. He'd wrongly assumed the police or prosecutors were involved.
I mean, I shouldn't have presumed, but I did presume, sadly, and that we were then, it had gone to court, was the expression they used. I had not encountered the notion of an organisation that could make that decision on its own.
The man in charge of the Post Office at the height of this scandal, unaware his own organisation had the power of prosecution.
I was not aware they were taking place. It's just a straight-out lie, isn't it, Mr Cook?
The point I was trying to make was about the initiation of prosecutions.
The inquiry was shown an email from a Post Office PR officer to Cook in 2009 about building nervousness around the Horizon IT system. Part of Cook's reply was read out.
You go on to say, my instincts tell that in a recession, subbies with their hand in the till choose to blame the technology when they are found to be short of cash.
Well, that's an expression I'll regret for the rest of my life.
He apologised directly to Janet Skinner on the left, who was wrongly jailed for 9 months.
I should have been on top of it, and I wasn't. This will be with you for the rest of your life. It will be with me for the rest of my life.
Adam Crozier was chief executive of Royal Mail between 2003 and 2010, when it owned the Post Office. He went on to be chief executive officer at ITV and is now chairman of BT. He said he had no knowledge that his company was responsible for prosecuting sub-postmasters.
Do you ever remember receiving reports about the conduct of prosecutions?
No, I don't.
Do you think, looking back with hindsight, this is an activity that ought to have been the subject of oversight?
With the benefit of hindsight, yes, I do.
Today's evidence raises more questions over the handling of the Post Office scandal. Neil Connery, ITV News.
And later in the programme, we have an interview with the widow of a sub-postmaster speaking out for the first time since he took his own life. But next, Britain's nuclear deterrent has been a thorny issue for Labour leaders in the past, but Sir Keir Starmer admitted today he would be prepared to push the button. In an exclusive interview with ITV News during a visit to the submarine shipyard in Barrow, he called the UK's nuclear deterrent the bedrock of Labour's defence policy. It represents a dramatic shift from the policies of his predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn. Sir Keir spoke to our political correspondent, Harry Horton.
Keir Starmer was here to see the next generation of Britain's nuclear submarines. being built at a cost of £31 billion. He hopes his party will be in power when the first dreadnought boats leave this giant hangar in the next decade. Today, he gave his full backing to Britain's nuclear programme.
This is a generational commitment, so my support for the deterrent as a cornerstone of our defence and to NATO is absolutely unshakable.
One old-time campaigner. Not all Labour leaders have been comfortable with nuclear deterrence. In fact, some, like Michael Foot and more recently Jeremy Corbyn,
I don't want us to replace Trident,
have actively campaigned against it.
Not every Labour MP will be happy seeing their party leader here today, but in an election year, Keir Starmer is desperate to prove that his party can be trusted on defence. Your predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn, said that his ambition was to see a nuclear-free world. What's wrong with that?
The nuclear deterrent has been effective now for decades. It's the single most important part of our armoury to protect our country, and that's why I'm so committed to it. I do want a safer world, but it is important to appreciate that deterrence and safety go together. They're two sides of the same coin.
If the circumstances arose, Britain was under attack, would you be prepared to push the nuclear button?
Well, the nuclear deterrence is the ultimate threat, and therefore, of course, the deterrence only works if there is a preparedness to use it.
Even if it means potentially killing millions of people?
The deterrence only works if there's a preparedness to use it. So that is a clear answer to your question.
Is it going this way or that way?
The Conservatives say Labour's commitments on defence aren't credible. Both parties say they want defence spending to increase to 2.5% of GDP. But how soon could a Labour government reach that level?
I've got the ambition that we should get to that 2.5% as resources allow. I can't stand here and pretend the government hasn't done huge damage to the economy. We can turn the taps on straight away.
Keir Starmer hopes by the end of the year he'll be walking the corridors of power. With wars in Europe and the Middle East, he believes he'll only get there with a clear commitment to defence. Harry Horton, ITV News, Bower-in-Furness.
Into other news now, and the man charged with murdering mother called Summer Akhtar in Bradford has had his trial date set for later this year. Habiba Massum was accused of stabbing the 27-year-old woman to death as she pushed her baby in a pram. Today he appeared at Bradford Crown Court, where a provisional trial date was set for the 18th of November. And the UK took another step today towards emerging out of recession. Official figures show the economy grew by 0.1% in February. Gross domestic product was buoyed by production and manufacturing, though the performance of the construction industry was impeded by the wet weather. There are warnings tonight that a large-scale attack by Iran on Israel could be imminent, perhaps within the next day or two. US officials say Israel is bracing itself for an Iranian strike at military targets using dozens of missiles and up to 100 drones. Foreign embassies have restricted travel for their personnel within Israel. Iran swore revenge for an attack on its consulate in Syria, killing 7 senior military figures. Well, our senior international correspondent John Irvine is in Tel Aviv for us this evening. John, what's the latest then?
Lucrezia, Ramadan's now over, and it's already 11 days since that strike on the Iranian consular building in Damascus, and the feeling is that the Iranians can't leave it for much longer. I think they are desperate to save face in some shape or form, but they won't want to embarrass themselves the way they did 4 years ago. In January 2020, the Americans assassinated the then top Iranian General Soleimani in Baghdad, and again Tehran vowed retaliation, but they went on to make a catastrophic mistake, shooting down a Ukrainian airliner just after it took off from Tehran airport, killing 176 people. At its closest point, Israel is still 1,000 miles from Iran. So a direct attack from Iranian territory on Israeli territory would be ambitious, and a lot can go wrong. So they may leave it to more reliable allies, proxies, Hezbollah in South Lebanon, for example, or the Houthis in Yemen. I think setting aside the death and destruction which may be inflicted on this country as soon as tonight or over the weekend, Lucrezia, what really matters is where this attack emanates from. If it's from South Lebanon or Yemen, it's more of the same. If it's from Iran, it's a seismic shift.
All right, John, in Tel Aviv, thank you. Well, there's plenty more to come on the ITV Evening News, including criticism of care organisations and the police at the inquest of a trans teenager who took his own life.
We felt very unlistened to. We felt that what did Jason need to present to warrant having intensive help, because he clearly needed it.
Glasgow offers to host a budget Commonwealth Games, but only if nowhere else wants them, and here come the girls. Thousands head to Aintree for Ladies' Day. Join us for all that after the break. Hello and welcome back. There were criticisms of both care organisations and police today at the inquest into a trans teenager whose body was found in a park. The inquest ruled that 15-year-old Jason Pullman, who was found dead in a park in Sussex 2 years ago, took his own life. The hearing said gender dysphoria was a contributing factor in Jason's death, but it also pointed to delays to his treatment. Layla Hayes reports.
15-year-old Jason Pullman, who was transgender, had a history of mental health problems, including self-harm and abuse of drink and drugs. In February 2020, he was put on the waiting list for an NHS gender dysphoria assessment. But by the time he died, more than 2 years later, he had still not been seen. His mum and stepdad say they had to watch him deteriorate.
We felt very unlistened to. We felt that what did Jason need to present to warrant having intensive help, because he clearly needed it.
And how much do you think the fact that he was on this waiting list contributed to his deterioration in mental health?
In Jason's mind, it was everything. That in his mind, that's what he needed.
A year, 2 years to an adult, that exactly. To a child with a mental health condition, I mean, you can't, unless you suffer with that, you can't put yourself in their shoes.
Jason's body was found in Hampden Park in Eastbourne. His parents had called Sussex police 5 times, but it was logged as medium risk. Today at the inquest, Jason's parents heard the jury describe the police response as inadequate.
And what do you think about the police response that day?
Utterly useless. We heard nothing the entire day until an hour before he was found.
Today, Sussex police said, "Our sincere condolences remain with Jason's family following their tragic loss. Our service fell below the standards expected and we accept the coroner's findings."
Someone like Jason would have helped someone like Jason.
But there was no one there to help him.
The inquest jury found failures by all of the organisations involved in Jason's care possibly contributed to his death, and that if care had been better, it might have been prevented. Layla Hayes, ITV News.
Gatwick has been ranked the worst airport when it comes to flight delays in the UK. An investigation found departures from the West Sussex Airport were an average of nearly 27 minutes behind schedule last year. Operations were affected by air traffic control staff shortages across Europe, as well as in its own control tower. Glasgow has offered to step in with a budget version of the Commonwealth Games in 2026, if nowhere else can be found to host them. The Australian state of Victoria withdrew last July over rising costs, while bids have yet to come from other places. Well, Glasgow last hosted the Games in 2014, and Louise Scott joins us from there. So, Louise, are these the Games that nobody wants?
It seems like it, doesn't it? There's usually such a competitive process to host these big sporting events, and instead with this one, they're struggling to find anyone. When we look at Birmingham Games in 2022, that cost £780 million. So you can understand with tight budgets why cities may be unwilling to take on this huge burden. Here in Glasgow, however, we already have the facilities in place from those 2014 games. So the Scottish Committee has estimated it would cost $150 million to host again in 2026. We asked the chair where exactly that money would be coming from.
We are not asking for public money. We are not taking money out of any budgets that for local authorities or Scottish Government. This is £100 million that's made available from the Commonwealth Games Federation from their Victorian settlement that will come into the city, and we'll raise more money on top of that from tickets, from sponsorship, from broadcast rights, etc. So we won't be compromising on any of those other services.
A reduced cost does mean a reduced sporting menu. There's likely to be 10 sports across just 11 days, but it will definitely include athletics and swimming. For now, Glasgow is just the backup. The Commonwealth Games Federation say they are still in talks, and we are likely to know by the end of May whether these Glasgow Games will return here.
OK, Louise, thank you. Now, Ladies' Day at Aintree is the traditional festival of glamour and fashion the day before the Grand National, a chance for racegoers to show themselves at their best at the famous course in Liverpool. After last year's animal rights protests, however, there's heightened security around Aintree, and while horses and jockeys are finding a course that's been made safer. Amy Lewis reports.
Ladies' Day! Ladies' Day is all about the frocks and having a flutter. They arrived at Aintree in every colour of the rainbow, hoping to leave with a purse full of gold.
Why did you want to come along to Ladies' Day?
Well, we really enjoy the horses. I love getting dressed up, so we just thought it was the best of both worlds and we would really enjoy a lovely day out.
What's it like here today?
Bit chaotic, but you know, we're just here for the vibes.
How confident are you going to win today?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just really excited to be here. I love looking at all the fashions, all the hats, all the styles everyone's wearing.
The course is gearing up to the biggest race of the year, tomorrow's Grand National. Last year, more than 100 animal rights campaigners were arrested for delaying the start. Aintree has since made alterations, like reducing the number of runners.
There is a risk element to it. We'll never eliminate that risk entirely, but our job is to make sure the race is being run as safely as possible. It's not just the changes we made this year, changes we made in previous years.
Horses are dying in the name of sport, is that right?
Obviously, one death is one too many, but these horses are born and bred in order to race.
Harry Cobden is riding Noble Yates in the National and is on course to be this season's champion jockey.
You've ridden in it before 6 times. What's it like, that feeling when you're actually out there in front of the crowds?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I just think the number of horses, the fences, the crowd, there's just so much adrenaline going through a jockey's body at the time.
After an incredible season, you're on course to be champion jockey. How are you feeling?
Excited. It's not over yet. We've still got 15 or 16 days racing left, so I just need to hopefully stay in one piece, keep it going, and yeah, it's exciting. It's something I've always wanted to do.
Some come for the sport, others for a social. There is no other event in the racing calendar quite like it. Amy Lewis, ITV News, Aintree.
It looks fun. It is, you're watching the ITV Evening News. It is just coming up to 7 o'clock. Emmerdale is here in half an hour. But first... worries over children's safety after WhatsApp lowers the age bar to 13.
Where's he gone? That's it.
How swapping 4 wheels for 2 led this quick-thinking cop to an arrest. Cheers. Newcastle United introduces sound shirts for deaf fans to feel the crowd's atmosphere. Meet the ultimate dog father, the Golden Retriever taking a well-earned break after fathering 300 guide dog pups.
And I'm here at the Greenwich Peninsula Ecology Park next to the River Thames. It's been warm here today, but temperatures are on the slide over the next few days. I'll have all the details and the full national forecast a little later in the programme.
But first, the anguish suffered by the widow of one sub-postmaster who blames the post office for his death. In an emotional and sometimes distressing interview with ITV News, Gauri Jayakanthan was speaking out for the first time since her husband died 20 years ago. He took his own life days after an audit showing a £180,000 shortfall at his post office branch in southwest London. It was his wife who discovered his body. Mrs. Jayakanthan, who was left penniless and alone to raise their 2 young children, has already had a compensation claim rejected. John Ray's report contains distressing details.
For the 20 years of her widowhood, Gauri has wondered what really happened on the last day of her husband's life.
There were 2 officers. I think the police also came. And I asked them, where is he? Where is my husband? They said he is under audit.
Jayakanthan rang a string of shops, but he'd taken on a post office branch and suddenly there was money missing.
He panicked.
Yeah, that's the best word. Yeah, he panicked and got scared. It was a shock and unexpected.
Gauri is reliving these moments publicly for the first time.
Finally, we thought to kick the door and we went inside. So we went upstairs and found him dead. Yeah. I know 3 days I didn't sleep. 3 days I was crying.
Your husband took his own life, but do you think somebody is to blame?
I think the post office is to blame.
The post office killed him?
Yes, is to blame.
Gauri describes her husband as an ambitious businessman and a generous father who worked hard to support their 2 young children. Then he bought a post office branch, and soon after the deal went through, auditors found a shortfall of almost £180,000 from the cash machine and safe. Within hours, Jayakanthan was dead.
Oh my God, it was a really bad dream for me.
Slowly, Gauri rebuilt her family's life. It was only when the flaws in the Horizon IT system became public that she sought redress. The independent post office panel admitted it had no reason to doubt that the audit and what it uncovered had a profound impact on Mr. Jayakanthan and resulted in him sadly taking his own life. Yet it rejected her claim for compensation, saying the discrepancies identified during the audit cannot, on the balance of probabilities, be presumed to be Horizon shortfalls.
There's a terrible implication in what the post office has said. Do you think it's possible that your husband did steal the money?
No, I don't think so.
Because he was an honest man, you believe?
Yeah. As a husband, yeah.
The branch is under new ownership, but 20 years on, the mystery remains. And the truth is, no one can account for the missing money. Even the post office, which concedes there is no Horizon data for the branch and limited relevant documentation in a case which cost a man his life.
This case is an absolute tragic one, but one of too many, unfortunately. A post office have either destroyed records or in some cases just lost them. Then we should err on the side of the victim. And that's what certainly should happen in this case.
Gauri's husband denied himself the chance to prove his innocence. He leaves behind only questions.
In the report, they say they believe it is not Horizon. So then we are now asking them to disclose the Horizon system which was in the Putney post office.
Do you think you've had justice?
No, I am very angry, disappointment. It cost me a lot. Personal, financial, I'm a widow, right?
The post office told us they are sorry for the pain and suffering of Horizon's victims, that every case can be disputed and re-examined. But this was a scandal covered up for so long, some truths may be lost forever. John Ray, ITV News.
And if you or anyone you know is affected by the issues in this report, our website at itv.com/news has more on where you can get help. Let's get an update on what is making the news tonight. Angela Rayner has said she will step down as Deputy Labour leader if she is found guilty of committing any crime. Greater Manchester Police has reopened an investigation into claims Miss Rayner made a false declaration about her main home a decade ago, which she denies. And a former post office boss has told the inquiry into the Horizon IT scandal he didn't realise the post office itself brought prosecutions. Alan Cook was managing director when hundreds of sub-postmasters were wrongly prosecuted. Campaigners are urging the social media giant Meta to think again over its decision to lower the age bar for WhatsApp users to 13. They claim that with recent concerns over children's mental health and safety, the move is tone deaf. Earlier this week, Meta unveiled new measures to protect users. Chloe Keedy reports.
Whether you go to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat or TikTok, probably depends on your age. One thing they do have in common is that users are supposed to be over the age of 12. WhatsApp was the exception, but it's just dropped its lower age limit from 16 to 13.
So as a parent, does that worry you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not a great fan of the kids with social media, to be honest.
I don't know if it worries me. I mean, it's something that I suppose I'd want to know about. I'd want to know what they were doing.
Who here is on social media?
Most of the teenagers we spoke to today said they were already using WhatsApp.
It's basically the only way where we can call our friends, text them.
Do you guys ever feel worried about social media?
All the time.
Yes.
I just don't really like the idea of where people can look at what you've been doing.
How would you feel if someone said you couldn't use WhatsApp anymore?
Well, there are so many other means to communicate that I think I'd be okay with it.
Like we've lifted a lid on a conversation that really needed to happen.
Claire runs a grassroots campaign calling for childhood to be kept smartphone free. She says WhatsApp's latest move is in the wrong direction.
WhatsApp's a messaging service. Is it really that dangerous?
Children are watching pornography at school that's being shared on WhatsApp, and we also know that it's the platform of choice for sexual predators because it's encrypted. So actually it's far from safe.
The platform says it bans users that it finds exploiting or endangering children.
WhatsApp points out that you can't add people you don't know. You need someone's number if you want to try and connect with them. And it says the first time you get a message from someone who isn't in your contacts, it'll give you the option to block or report them.
The government says its new online safety bill will give the regulator more powers to protect children, and Ofcom insists it won't hesitate to use them.
We can issue fines if companies don't comply with their duties under the new legislation, and those fines could be up to 10% of their worldwide revenue, so it's a significant threat.
WhatsApp says the new age limit brings Europe in line with most other countries. But it's the world of social media parents worry about, one that some believe will never be safe. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
Farmers across Britain are counting the cost of the huge amounts of rain that have hit their businesses in winter and early spring. Both arable and livestock farms have been left struggling by the record-breaking drenching. The National Farmers Union says UK food production will be hit unless farmers get more help. Sangeeta Lal reports.
After months of relentless rain and the most severe storm season for almost a decade, conditions have calmed, but the land hasn't recovered. The soil is still too saturated, causing crops to rot.
So we're in a field of wheat here, and this is biscuit wheat, but as you can see, these brown patches are where the seed has just rotted away all winter.
So this should be full?
Yeah, this should be full of green wheat, like you can see in the rest of the field. And it's not, it's just gone.
Tom Collins' family have farmed here for more than 100 years, but he says he's now given up trying to grow crops on some of his fields for the first time.
In the autumn, we were pulling the seeds out of the ground and they were just gone to mush because they just rotted away in the ground. So we probably lost £100,000 worth of income.
The government says it's going to offer grants to support farmers like yourselves who've been affected by wet weather. Is that going to help you?
It's a help towards it, but it's not enough. You know, it's too late. And also financially, it's not enough money. It's never enough money, is it?
The government's now offering a farming recovery fund for any farmer who suffered uninsurable damage from flooding earlier this year. Anything between £500 and £25,000 could be given out, but not to everyone. Counties like Herefordshire and Yorkshire aren't eligible, and farmers who say they are say it won't come soon enough.
Across the country, there was 29% more rainfall than the average this year, and farmers in the south suffered the wettest February on record. With their fields still submerged, they say they're struggling to keep their businesses afloat, and there are warnings that food price rises are now inevitable.
If we don't produce enough wheat here, we're more reliant on imports, and that increases costs for manufacturers.
It could also lead to food shortages after the loss of winter crops and the inability for many to plant during this spring. It's also affecting livestock, with lambs struggling to survive the wet weather.
Anything that's a little bit weak and they just, they fall by the wayside then, you're picking up dead lambs in the morning then. So, yeah, it's not good.
Despite the calmer conditions, farmers face losing hundreds of thousands of pounds while they wait for the soil to dry out.
And when it's claggy like that, that's no good. It needs to crumble into like loose little bits.
For Tom, though, he has just 3 days to plant 200 acres of wheat during a season that usually gives hope for the harvest ahead. But many believe their yields simply won't be enough. Sangeeta Lal, ITV News, Wiltshire.
To a police chase caught on camera now, but one with a rather unexpected twist. In hot pursuit of a suspect who fled on foot from the scene of a car crash, a quick-thinking policeman found a way of chasing him down. He borrowed a bike from a passerby. Ben Chapman has a story.
Exeter India, this is a strange pursuit. It's actually in reverse.
By the officer's own admission, it was an unusual day's work, the rather backwards pursuit of a stolen car.
Speed is 70 in a 30.
That continued at high speed through the streets of Rotherham.
Ooh.
But it was when the Range Rover finally collided with a lamppost.
That shouldn't be there.
And both the suspects and the officer abandoned their cars.
Where's he gone?
That a horrified passerby offered some assistance.
Where's he gone? That's it.
Goodbye, mate.
Oops.
After something of a tentative start,
cheers,
the grateful officer continued to follow one of the suspects using some borrowed pedal power.
Stay where you are!
After just about catching up, the pursuit took him through several back gardens before the suspect was finally cornered.
Stay still. Get your hands where I can see him now! Do not move! Get on the floor now!
South Yorkshire Police have thanked the cyclists who helped their officer here on this corner the other night, saying it's a great feeling to know they have the community's support. We're told he has now been reunited with his bike.
At this time under arrest.
Meanwhile, the suspect was also allegedly involved in a jewellery robbery. His arrest the result of some two-wheeled teamwork. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Rotherham.
Nike is facing a backlash after unveiling Team USA's uniforms for the Paris 2024 Summer Olympics, with critics saying they are too revealing. The one-piece speed suit designed for female track and field athletes is being compared to swimwear because of its high-cut bikini line. The men's uniform features a sleeveless top with tights. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have signed deals to be the executive producers of 2 new Netflix series. According to the streaming service, the first of the shows will be focused on the joys of cooking, gardening, entertaining and friendship, while the second will give unprecedented access to the world of professional polo. And it was described as a disaster and a disappointment, but the journey is not over for Glasgow's notorious Willy Wonka chocolate experience. It's going stateside. A group has organised a tongue-in-cheek recreation of the event in Los Angeles on April the 28th. Newcastle United's Toon Army are among the proudest and loudest football fans in Britain, but now the club has come up with a revolutionary way of enhancing the experience of those of its supporters who are deaf or hearing impaired. New technology implanted into replica shirts will vibrate when the crowd gets stirred up. Mark McQuillan reports.
For fans, a key part of what makes football memorable is the atmosphere. Now deaf supporters of Newcastle United will be able to feel it like they never have done before. It will happen with the aid of special shirts, which will be worn for the first time for tomorrow's home match.
Yeah, we're really excited to feel the tops, to feel the music, the singing, the fans, the goals, everything. It's like a one-off top, so we're really excited to feel part of the sound and part of the crowd and understand what it's like for everyone. So at games we don't really hear the sound, so we're excited to feel it.
As for how the shirts work, well, at the stadium, microphones will pick up sound during the match. That sound is analysed by special software and converted into data, which is then transmitted to the shirt through an antenna, causing motors to vibrate in time with the crowd's cheering, giving those wearing the shirt a sensory experience.
I hope we don't get a 0-0, but I'm really intrigued to see the guys when a goal goes in and the experience they have, because, as you say, when I played here, you know, you used to go out there, the atmosphere, the hairs on the back of your neck went up, and it's all about that. And if we can give that to deaf people at football matches, then it's going to only be a good thing.
Hello, how is everybody? You okay?
The Royal National Institute for Deaf People supports 12 million people in the UK who are deaf, have hearing loss or tinnitus. Tomorrow the charity will be on the front of Newcastle's players' shirts, including Dan Byrne, who had more good news.
For the Tottenham game, you're all going to be mascots, so you get to walk out with us in front of the crowd.
Amazing. Celebrate. The special shirts emphasise that watching football isn't black and white. Now these supporters are being heard. Awareness and spirits have been raised even before a ball at tomorrow's game has been kicked. Mark McQuillan, ITV News.
Still to come before Emmerdale. Putting up his paws, the father of hundreds of guide dog puppies gets a well-earned rest.
And it has officially been the warmest day of the year so far, and I hope you made the most of it, because I'm afraid temperatures slide away from here on in. I'll have all the details and the full national forecast next.
Well, join me and Becky after this short break. Hello again. Now, it's been the hottest day of the year so far for some in the UK today. Becky is out of freshwater habitat in Greenwich Peninsula with the outlook for the weekend. Becky, is the weather going to hold?
Short answer, no. And that's the end of my life. No, welcome to the Greenwich Peninsula Ecology Park next to the River Thames in south-east London. It's amazing here. The park, which spans across 4 acres, has been open to the public for over 20 years and has rapidly become an established and diverse urban wetland. This freshwater habitat is run by hard-working volunteers and includes lakes, marshes, woodland and a wildflower meadow that is home to everything from newts and frogs to butterflies. Now, it is particularly exciting at the moment because we've got all the migrant birds returning after their hot weather holiday at the moment, and I think they may regret their return because although it has been, as you say, the warmest day of the year so far today, it's set to get quite a lot colder over the next few days. If we have a look at the temperature contour sequence, you can see we've got those gorgeous, comforting reds and yellows and oranges across us at the moment, but very rapidly they're going to be replaced by something much colder. Polar maritime air moving in from the north, and that's really going to have an effect on our temperatures over the next few days. Have a look at those temperatures and you can see that although we've had temperatures into the low 20s today, by the time we get to early next week, it is depressingly cold, I'm afraid. Temperatures back to around the seasonal average. Let's have a look at the forecast.
Today, it could be pouring in many places, but not for a little while. Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.
I'm rapidly not making friends with this forecast, am I? After saying it was so warm, let's have a look at the detail for the weekend. We have got blustery heavy showers, I'm afraid, across the north on Saturday, and then sunshine and a few scattered showers on Sunday, and starting to feel a little bit chillier as well, I'm afraid. Straight into the detail for this evening and overnight. We are expecting a band of weakening cloud and some patchy drizzle to continue its journey slowly southeastwards across the UK. So really across northern parts of England, northern Wales, by the time we get to the end of the night, it is going to be quite gloomy for you, but nothing sort of particularly heavy along that, really just a drizzly sort of picture. But we do still have coastal gales across Scotland. So we look ahead to the start of the weekend. It's quite a grey start for many, but really not too bad. Away from Scotland, where once again we've got some heavy blustery showers. Elsewhere, it's going to be largely dry and feeling quite warm in the best of the sunshine. And then jumping ahead to the picture for Sunday, generally a drier picture. Most of the showers will be across the far northern areas. In the south, it's largely dry, bright as well, but feeling a little bit cooler.
Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.
So I reckon that we're going to see a phenomenon in the air. It's going to be the migrant birds coming back and doing a U-turn and heading straight back to the warm stuff. Have a lovely weekend.
You too, Becky. Thank you. Finally, as dads go, he's been pretty prolific, but the time has come for a change. Those who don't know Trigger, a golden retriever, says he's remained easygoing and gentle-natured despite an extensive brood of more than 300. But as Nick Smith reports, Trigger's offspring become guide dogs for the blind, and he's now retiring for well-earned rest.
This handsome gent comes with quite the reputation for being a desirable dad. Trigger, the 9-year-old golden retriever, has been one of the most prolific fathers of guide dog puppies in history. And his descendants have changed the lives of more than 300 people, with his 39th and final litter born just 9 weeks ago. His owner Sarah tells me he's taken it all in his stride, but it's not easy to keep track of all of them.
I do keep in touch with a couple of the litters, but obviously it's too much to do all of them.
One of those litters produced 16 puppies, a record for the guide dogs. And sometimes all that work did take its toll.
He did have a break at one point because obviously he just needed a break, really. He used to go out to the centre and they'd be all excited. But obviously if it was just for an eye checkup or something, you know, you'd come back an hour later and he was a bit disappointed.
Out of his 329 offspring, 294 were bred to be guide dogs, while the remaining pups went into other assistance roles. Jenny is just 9 weeks old and is one of Trigger's final litter of 6. She's being looked after by Helen, a volunteer puppy raiser who'll provide a home for her for the first year of her life before she starts formal training.
Tell me what you think about his achievement, I suppose.
I was quite honoured to find I had a pup from Trigger's last litter. I think it's absolutely phenomenal what he's achieved, to be honest. Bless him, he's worked hard.
Whilst Trigger's stud days are now behind him, he now enters a period of well-earned retirement, and he leaves a legacy of hundreds of offspring that serve to help others live independently, truly earning him the title of the Dog Father. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Pause up. That's it. Paul Brand is back with news at 10, but from me and the evening news team, bye-bye.